Yesterday, we learned that Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, is a danger to the country. That was not totally surprising. We already knew he was a reckless nutcase. In June, in the middle of a televised congressional hearing, Milley leveled a racial attack against more than half of this country. Milley told Congress that something called white rage was a national crisis. He never proved it or even defined the term, and yet still he kept his job, which says as much about Congress as it does about him. Then in July, we learned that Milley had suggested the U.S. military was willing to use violence against Donald Trump, who was then the sitting president. We're the guys with guns, he told fellow officers. Still, Congress did nothing. Now, thanks to a new book by Bob Woodward and Bob Costa, we've learned that Milley secretly collaborated with our greatest military rival, the government of China. On October 30th last year, according to the book, Milley called his counterpart in China, a Chinese general. He did not tell his boss about the call, either before he made it or after. Here was Milley's message for the Chinese military. We are not going to attack or conduct any kinetic operations against you. General Lee, you and I have known each other for 5 years. If we're going to attack, I'm going to call you ahead of time. It's not going to be a surprise. It's hard to believe that conversation actually took place, but apparently it did. More than 24 hours after it was reported, Mark Milley has not denied it. Instead, his spokesman released a statement today confirming that Milley does regularly speak to Chinese military officials, but claiming that those calls are authorized by civilian leaders at the Pentagon. But that turns out to be a lie. Just hours ago, the former Secretary of Defense, Christopher Miller, told Fox News he has no idea what Mark Milley is talking about. Quote, as Secretary of Defense, I did not and would not ever authorize such conduct. As Miller put it, quote, a lesser-ranking officer accused of such behavior would immediately be relieved of duty. But Mark Milley has not been relieved of duty, and apparently he won't be. Today, Joe Biden endorsed him and the job he's doing.
Sir, did General Milley do the right thing, sir?
Thank you. Let's go. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
General Milley do the right thing?
I have great confidence in General Milley.
So for secretly revealing American military strategy to the Chinese government, for threatening violence against a sitting American president, Mark Milley is not going to be punished. Are you surprised by this? Maybe you shouldn't be. In Washington, this is normal. Colluding with the Chinese government is not considered a sin. It's not even weird. Watch this video of Milley from 2015 as he explains that China somehow is not a threat to us.
Is Russia a greater threat to the U.S. than ISIS right now?
I said in testimony that I considered Russia the #1 threat to the United States. Russia is the only country on earth that has the capability to destroy the United States of America. It's an existential threat by definition. China is not an enemy. They are going to develop themselves and are developing themselves into a great power. That is not to say, however, that they are an enemy, and it is not to imply nor say that conflict with China is inevitable.
So Milley thinks China's winning, and so he's sucking up to his new masters. So he tells us, quote, Russia is the only country on earth that has the capacity to destroy the United States. That's absurd. Nobody believes that. The Chinese military is far, far more powerful than anything Vladimir Putin controls. It's not even close. Milley knows that. He's lying about it, and that should make you very nervous. Why is he lying about that? No one in Congress seems to care at all. People with oversight seem to be on his side. This morning, Tom Cotton, the Republican senator from Arkansas, came on Fox and Friends to talk about Mark Milley. Here's part of that conversation.
This book raises some serious concerns. I have to say some of the allegations seem somewhat far-fetched to me. But General Milley and Secretary Austin are going to be testifying in front of Congress in just a few days, and we'll address these concerns. We don't want to jump to conclusions yet. I know he will address it, and we'll ensure that he addresses it. But this is one of those claims, obviously, that seems a little far-fetched, the idea that an American military general is going to warn an adversary if an attack is coming. As you say, when Donald Trump was never even thinking about a military attack against China, the whole thing is pretty far-fetched.
Oh, we don't want to jump to conclusions yet. Really? What conclusions? At the time that interview took place this morning, it had already been conclusively established that Mark Milley was pushing open racism on the United States military, that he had bragged to fellow officers about resisting the American president, quote, with guns, and that he had told military officials that he, not the president, controlled our country's nuclear arsenal. So how much more evidence do you need exactly? And why does no one in Washington consider this a crisis? The leadership of the Pentagon, some of them anyway, constitute a threat to the United States.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.